Hello, and welcome back to the Business First Creatives podcast. Today, I am chatting with my client and friend, Katelyn Dekle, who is an amazing, kick-ass Squarespace website designer. But we're actually not going to talk about websites today. Guys, this is the interview that I promised on Instagram months ago when I temporarily lost my mind over talking about Enneagrams. Katelyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
So I'm going to state, because I know Katelyn will want this stated, Katelyn is not an Enneagram expert, guys. She is just someone who loves talking about them. So when I did the Instagram live, and if you haven't seen this live, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. You don't necessarily have to watch it in order to follow today's episode. But on Instagram at the end of last year, I was talking about Enneagrams and how I was obsessed with finding out the Enneagram of all my current clients because I felt like it was giving me such insight into how they needed me to talk them through the process, what the process was like working with them, and then how they used or treated their support period after. And I put out there, I was like, hey, if anybody knows any Enneagram experts, please, reach out. And Katelyn was like, oh, I'm not an expert, but I love talking about it. And I was like, oh, Katelyn on my podcast? Yes, I don't need an expert. I just need you, Katelyn.
Yay.
So I think I also want to tell you guys before we jump in, I have notes up on my computer because I honestly couldn't tell you all of the types. I know there are 9, which, guys, I get a gold star for that. There are 9 types of Enneagrams. And so I have pulled up my report so that I can refer to it if Katelyn says something that I have no idea what she's talking about. So, Katelyn, I know you're laughing at me. It's fine. Everything's fine. Why don't you start by telling everyone the first time that you took the Enneagram test?
Oh, good question. I think it was like 2018-ish, and I don't even remember where I heard it from, but I took the Ready test, RHETI, I think, from the Institute. It was like 100 million questions. I got a massive report. And I actually just took a different test this morning to see if I would get the same results.
Okay, don't say that. We're going to say that because that's interesting. Because Katelyn, the next question that I was actually about to ask you is, if you took the test in 2018, do you think that your Enneagram changes? As your life changes, as your perspective changes, do you think that your Enneagram type can change?
Yes. I don't think I've evolved as much as I thought I
did. Which is okay.
Yeah, I do think it changes. I think I'm just leaning more in different directions now than I used to.
And I feel like I understand that because, first of all, we're going to have to talk about wings because I still don't quite know what that means. I mean, I have an idea based on the scale, but when I first took the test, it was required in one of the group programs that I was in. So, she had a list of all of these. I know people don't like to refer to it as a personality test, but there were several tests that she wanted everyone to take because she said, if you figure out what type you are, it's going to help you in figuring out how to work through this material and how to create and run your business. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whatever. Yeah, I don't believe that, but it's okay. I'm going to spend $100 and some to take these multiple tests. And in the end, I'm going to tell you guys my Enneagram results first, and then I'm going to let Katelyn kick off with hers because Katelyn knows way more about hers than I know about mine. So guys, I'm looking at my report again because I needed a cheat sheet. So my top 3, when you complete an Enneagram test, it is going to tell you what your top 3 types are. But in order to get all of the information, you have to pay for the full report. So I will just put that out there in case any of you in the audience have not taken the test and you're like, ooh, I'm going to go take this. So my top Enneagram type is type 8, which is the challenger. And I know no one is surprised by listening to me being referred to as a challenger. My second type is the achiever, which I honestly feel comes out way more than the challenger. I feel like I'm always an achiever, but the challenger only comes out in certain situations. And then my third top type, let's go there, is type 1, which is the reformer. And so again, guys, type 8, challenger, type 3 achiever, and type 1 reformer. And now I'm going to kick it over to Katelyn because hers are completely different than mine. I think that's why we like each other. So, Katelyn, why don't you tell us what your top 3 types were when you took the test in 2018? And then I want you to tell me if any of them were different when you took the test this morning.
Okay. So my top, like by far ranked the highest in was the loyalist, type 6, also known as the devil's advocate. That fits me like a glove still. My second, and fun fact, at the bottom where it lists like people with this personality type are George Costanza from Seinfeld. No. Just no. And then the second type I tested highest for was type 9, the mediator. And the third was type 3, the motivator. Or the achiever.
Or the
so
achiever.
We do have some crossover
We do
there.
have some crossover, but also type 9, Katelyn, is my lowest, just so that you know.
Really?
I am not a peacemaker. I am not a mediator. That was my lowest type. And so it was really funny because how this conversation started, guys, was I reached out to all of the VIP Day clients that I had done recently, and Katelyn was one of them at that time. And I was like, guys, if you've ever taken your Enneagram, can you just DM me what your Enneagram type was? And when Katelyn sent me hers, it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking going with this. So Katelyn, when you took it this morning, were those still your top 3?
Yes, but, well, not the top 3, the top 2,
okay.
I think. One of them was the 8 this morning.
Okay.
Which I thought seemed weird.
It does seem weird for you to be a challenger. What do you think's changed since 2018 to now that you think may have swayed your answers on the test to lead towards being a little bit more defiant? Because that's not something that I pick up in your personality at all.
No, it's really not. I'm much more of a go with the flow type of person. But since 2018, I took my business full-time in 2020. Okay. And I think since then, I've had to become more of a challenger, even though it's not a natural state for me.
I think we could talk for an hour on that, Katelyn. But no, I mean, I think it's really interesting that your top 2 were the same. And just for me, because I'm curious, when you say that your top is a 6 and that it was, far away from your others, like what was your point spread?
On the original one, it was...
Or on the one today.
The original ones had 26 for 6, 23 for 9, and 18 for 3.
Okay.
So it's not that far apart.
Mine were only 2 points apart each one. So really? Even though I have tried to push back on people and I'm like, no, I really do think I'm a type 8 and a type 3, almost equally. They're like, no, you can only be 1. And I'm like, whatever. I don't think you get the point of this test, but okay, I'll go with that. But yeah, I was only 2 points between them. And I really do think that it's just different situations where my type 8 is definitely the dominant. And in other situations, I mean, type 3, I think is what I am just on an everyday basis. I think the challenger comes out when I am in a room where I think that I have the authority and that I know that when I'm being presented with something, if someone tries to tell me that I'm wrong and I know that I'm right, I'm like, no, that's not a thing, guys. I know that I'm right 100%. And here, let me show you why. So let me ask you a question. Beyond taking the test, have you ever been curious about the people that hire you or the people in your family? Have you ever had any curiosity towards other people's Enneagram types?
When I first took it, I wanted everybody to take it, but I'm a meticulously detailed person, and I don't know that everybody just wants to sit down and take a $12 test that has 150 questions in it. So no one took it. And so I was just sitting there thinking okay, my mom is probably this, my sister is probably that, my dad is probably that, my husband is probably that. And I was just guessing. Okay. But I never thought about it with my clients until a month or so ago in a different program I'm in, and she was doing a different personality thing. And then I started thinking about it. Why I never put the 2 together for all of those years, I do not know.
Well, I don't know why you didn't put it together when I invited you on this podcast and I did that whole live.
No, yeah, I did.
Because what I was thinking of when I realized what a few of my clients were, I was like, wow, an 8 has never hired me. That was what I actually came to the realization of. Like
Hmm.
challengers, like, do we think differently when we hire people? And then I was like, not only thinking about people who choose to work with me as like their Dubsado specialist, I was thinking about it in terms of the people that I choose to hire. And then I was like, oh, that's actually a much deeper conversation, like internally, because I think that a lot of us go shopping for business coaches. Katelyn, I know that you've been in a lot of programs and you are someone who puts your money where your mouth is. Like if you want to learn something, you don't shy away from making like investments in yourself and your business. But
Yep.
when I had that realization that I started thinking about my own clients, I then started thinking about the people that I've paid. And I was like, I know everyone that I've hired at least has to have type 3 in their top 3 types, like without a doubt. And then
Yeah.
I started thinking of individual people and I was like, I think several of them are challengers as well. And so it just got me in this mindset of maybe I should be considering the Enneagram types in terms of who I would work with best and who would help me get the best results. And then flip that around for myself because I know I'm not the setup specialist for everyone. I'm not the business coach for everyone. And so if I could just think about the people who tend to have the best results for me or the people that I even like working with the most. Like what
Yeah.
would that do to like the selling process and the buying process for myself?
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, how might you need to adjust the process to work with adjacent personality types?
Mhm. Let's talk
That
about
one's like,
adjacent
whoa.
personality types.
Okay.
So, if you're a 6, you're a loyalist. Who
Hmm.
are your adjacent personality types?
It told me that I was a 9 wing, which makes sense. That's like my peacemaker, mediator kind of side.
Mhm.
So that's what I revert to. I switched to a 9 for growth and a 3 under stress.
So you switch to being an achiever under stress. That's interesting. How do you think
Yes,
that plays out as a business owner?
probably negatively. Because that's when my perfectionist tendencies come out when I'm a 3 and
Mhm.
I stop paying attention to the devil's advocate thing, or the devil's advocate thing starts to cause issues with me choosing or making decisions because I can see both sides
Mhm.
evenly. So yeah, it can be prohibitive if I allow it to. It's something I
Okay.
need to pay attention to for sure.
And I mean, it's funny that you mentioned the perfectionist because I was on a recent podcast talking to someone else about decision fatigue and people not being able to make decisions and being stuck inside of the perfection part and like not moving forward when you literally just need to make a decision and go with it. If it doesn't work out, you can figure out a way to move forward. You can tweak it, you can come up with a new idea. But if you stay stuck in like, it must be perfect before I put it out into the world, you will never actually launch an offer. You will never actually launch a product. Is that how
Yeah.
you feel, or does it play differently?
I am almost wholly in that space. It's like it's coming from a nurturing side. I've learned in this other program where I'm doing their personality thing, I'm an analyst slash nurturer. Those are the two types that I fall into. So the nurturer side of me is like, I want this to be the best damn thing they could ever take in their like they don't
Yes.
ever want to pay anyone else. And like, so that's where the perfectionism is coming from. It's not actually from me wanting to be perfect. It's more me wanting to be correct and fully fleshed out so that I can help them as much as possible. And that's where I get stuck because that's the detail oriented nature of me coming out. So that's like my analyst, my loyalist, like all of the
Hmm.
things kind of coming into one space. So it can be hurtful.
And I'm going to say I've actually seen that play out
Yeah.
because you referred one of your clients to me. And Katelyn, you do Squarespace websites. And by the way, Brittany's website is awesome. I will say that. But I do know that you tried to help her with her systems and her Dubsado. And you got to a point to where you were like, nope,
Yep.
this is
Yeah.
not where I can help you anymore. I need to send you to someone else. But like, I do love that about you because I feel like you and I's personalities are very similar in that way. Like, when someone comes to me for systems help, I cannot stick with just the systems. Like, I want to know everything about the way that you run your business, because there are things that are
Yeah.
related to your systems. And even though I don't sell myself as a business coach, when someone hires me to do a
Right.
Dubsado setup, you know from experience that I just
Yes.
can't help myself. I mean, I'm asking you all the things because
Yeah.
everything that I can do to help your business better, even beyond what you paid me for, is something that I feel compelled to do. And I know that you
Yep.
feel the same way. So it's
Exactly the
interesting
same.
that yeah, it's interesting that comes out in, personality tests, because I've never really
Hmm.
thought about, I mean, I just thought that was me. Like, I didn't really think that it was like a personality trait that someone could, ask me a few questions and basically pluck that out and put it
Yeah.
into a report where I could think about the ways that affects my business.
Yeah, I didn't either. I had a client actually. It started to become a pattern. When they were giving me reviews, they were like, it's not just a website, it's a website
Mhm.
and strategy, and it's a website and coaching, and it's a website and whatever. And I was like, well, I have to know those things to know how your business works so I can design a website that will do a thing for you. It's like, to me, it's just logical. And then I'm wanting to help. So that's just
Mhm.
how it works. But yeah, it wasn't until I started hearing that over and over again. I was like, oh, okay. I guess I am kind of doing all of those things.
Yes, and I worked with a customer insight specialist. She was actually on the podcast a few episodes ago, and when she did interviews with my clients, she was like, Colie, you should probably really talk about more about your business coaching. And I looked at her and I'm like, but I don't really do business coaching. She goes, oh, but you do. She's
Yeah.
like, 7 out of your 9 interviews, I'll mention it. And I was like, I mean, but it's not something that I sell. She goes, but that doesn't mean that you can't highlight it as part of the service. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm with you, Melissa. I'm picking this up. And so, I started to tweak like the testimonials that went on my website and the ways that I was talking about what I was doing on Instagram. And so it really does like put my services out there more holistically. And I think that you do the exact same. But like,
Yeah.
let's talk about what you do and how it affects this, because knowing that you give people more than a damn website, which, by the way, guys, Katelyn's company's name is Launch the Damn Thing. And so we both curse like sailors. I apologize in advance. So, knowing that you offer all of this value and that your view towards building them a website that really converts is a really holistic thing, how has that adjusted the pricing for your services over the years? Because I assume they're correlated.
Yes. It wasn't until I started taking Booked Out Designer and jumped in where the students were like, oh my God, Katelyn, you really got to change those prices. And I was like, oh my God, I'm allowed to do that. Right. Okay. So it's been like 2 years since I've changed anything. So
Mhm.
since then, taking a different approach, they are changing hopefully twice a year. So they're about to
Yeah.
change again. And I'm reevaluating as I do that. I'm also productizing what I'm doing a little bit more. So I'm trying to box up more of it and
Mhm.
do less like from scratch stuff.
Mhm.
So lessening the admin stuff. So yeah, it's changing quite a bit.
Mhm.
But also because those clients have continually said like coaching and systems, and the last one that submitted a review specifically mentioned all the third party platforms, Katelyn, blah 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 blah. And I was like, okay. So it's becoming a thing. So I am just packing that in and making the price go up as a result.
And so, do you think? Okay, because let's talk about your offer suite. I sorry
Yeah.
guys, this is going to go off on a tangent because I love Katelyn and just everything. So let's talk about your offer suite, because you do full builds in
Mhm.
Squarespace, and then you also have your VIP days. So tell me what's included in a VIP day versus a full build, and then how do those two things relate to what we're talking about, which is you offering way more value than just the website as the final deliverable.
So the VIP day is usually just a shit list. They come to me with a list of things that they don't want to do themselves, and we have an agreed to set list. So I tackle that in a day. They get a week of support after that. It's pretty simple, one and done.
Mhm.
It's usually like changing branding. Like I've just updated, now I need to put it on my website, but I don't know where all the color settings are and
Mhm.
like we
Mhm.
random stuff. Adding a new page. Websites tend to be like, we're diving in deep, deep, deep.
Mhm.
It's a 2-week process, so it's fast. Once the project is booked, like we're done in like 10 business days. So yeah, I don't like long drawn out projects.
Me
Projects I
either, and you know
learned from
that.
yeah, yeah, I'm the same way. And I never wanted to be that person that had like a 6-month website project. That just seems like I would
Goes on
definitely get
forever.
bored. Yeah.
Mhm.
So they're fast and there's a lot of homework. There's workbooks and everything. But the point for me is to get so deep into their head that I can plan for addressing problems before they come up, which is my Enneagram 6 coming out,
Mhm.
and also diving really deep into strategy so they can try to design it as if I were them, knowing what they know, which is really hard to do if you don't ask
Mhm.
a million questions, which is again my Enneagram 6 coming out.
Yeah. So, we've talked a lot about strategy, and, like, this is currently, like, a hot button topic.
Mhm.
Do you ever think that you will have a product or service or offer that just addresses the strategy? Or do you think that that can only be done in like a one-on-one offer with the bigger picture in mind? Because I did strategy and I've only done it one time. And Katelyn, I think I actually did that client the same month that I did you or right after. I've only had one client that took me up on only doing a VIP day of strategy and not implementation. And me, myself, at the end of the day, I was very sad that I didn't get to see it implemented. Like, and I've tried to follow up a few times and didn't hear back. And so, I mean, I don't know how it went with just a strategy. And so that's what kind of leaves me with not doing like an offer that is only strategy, because I really do want to see the whole thing played out. Like, not only do I want to tell you what to do, I want to make sure that it gets done right.
Right.
I'm sure there's an Enneagram little tip in there somewhere. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I feel. And so there are lots of other people, though, right now that are thinking about doing the strategy as its own separate offer, because there aren't a lot of people that really have those kinds of analytical, strategic minds that you and I have.
Yeah, and I will say, like, you could certainly have your entire business built around this, going into the deep data, looking at analytics, like making your charts for customers, and like, I mean, like going full. I'm not that person. I love the data, but I don't want to do that level of it. What I'm diving into more often is like, do you like your logo? Yes or no? Usually the answer is like, it's fine. So the follow up question is like, well, what don't you like about it? Do you feel like it's working for you? And usually the answer is, what do you mean?
Mhm.
And so then we dive into loose strategy around how can we make it work for your business in a different way. And that's the basis of where I start. So I don't deep dive into the analytics
Mhm.
from a standpoint of, do I get sad that I like if I wasn't, I don't know, because I'm always involved in that
Yeah.
piece of it. The parts I think that I could maybe answer toward is like, if they come to me with a terrible logo, I know it's not doing something for them and they don't want to change it.
Mm.
Yeah, that makes me sad because I know that everything that I produce with that could be a lot better if we adjusted the strategy, which also requires making some refinements to the logo and the
Mhm.
branding as a whole. So, yeah, I think in that respect, it would make me sad if I couldn't like bring it into fruition all the way.
Mhm.
But I do see a point in the future where in fact, I have a course idea in my head for strategy around a website.
Okay.
It would have to have some sort of community, I think, though, because that's such a like subjective thing. And I know there will be questions.
Mhm.
And my detail oriented nature is like, okay, well, I also need to be the person to answer those questions.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure when, but it's coming.
Okay.
And I don't know what that will look like for seeing the full, like, come into fruition thing. I don't know if that'll be like, I want to see the students' end results. I'm sure I will.
Mhm.
But how many of them would I get to see? I don't know. And that might make me sad if I don't get
Yeah.
to see a lot.
I mean, I get it. Like, it's hard, like, because I want to see the end result. I want to make sure that everybody is taking, what I'm giving them and that they're actually like using it to improve their business,
Yeah.
because it hasn't happened often, but I know at least one person that I've set up didn't actually make the switch from Honeybook into Dubsado. And
Oh,
it was, I
that's
mean,
sad.
that person had a lot going on, just in case she's
Yeah.
listening to this podcast episode. There was a lot going on in like life and business at that point.
Yeah.
And so, and I didn't realize it until recently, and that was over a year ago. So one thing that made me do, like, the detail oriented nature of myself, was I was like, I feel like now I need to have additional touch points after the support period is over, just so that I can check in and make sure that, everything is fully implemented, because the support period is, the one that I give all of my clients, is to make sure that you actually jump in there and that you
Yeah.
get it going. But like, I've never really thought to check in like 6 months later, other than, hey, if you're thinking of doing this, I have this half day, refresh. I mean, I can sell it, but
Yeah.
like, just to check in to make sure that everything's going in, I think that I might need something like 90 days out, 6 months at the latest.
Yeah, because not everybody's like me and like popping into your DMs going, hey, by the way, have I mentioned how awesome your wizardry is?
Katelyn, don't ever stop sending me those messages. I get such joy from Katelyn's messages, guys. Like, she's like, oh my gosh, I sold this today and it was so easy and my client was so impressed by the process. And I'm like, I wish I could just clone you. I wish I could just clone you. It would be awesome.
Yes, I wish I could clone you too.
Well, and I mean, guys, as I've said many times now, Katelyn designs Squarespace websites. And I mean, I love Katelyn, but in order to work with her, I'd probably have to switch to Squarespace. And we all know that's not happening. So unfortunately, you will never see a Launch the Damn Thing website in my future. I tried to get her to think about Showit, and she's like me when people were asking me about like 17 hats and Honeybook. And I was like, no, I'm not the person for you. Sorry. Although, Katelyn, did you see now I'm offering Honeybook setup? So maybe there's hope.
I did. I've played and show it too. I don't hate it. There's so many aspects that I'm like, oh, but
I mean, but it is like a thing of taking you out of your comfort zone. And I would never say that you should do a Showit website just because I want you to do one. Do you know what I mean? Like, you are definitely in your element when you're designing in Squarespace. And so maybe that's something that we should talk about. Like, how does the Enneagram play into your boundaries? So the specific types that you have, how does that allow you to set good boundaries with your clients or not allow you to set good boundaries with your clients? Because I feel like as a challenger, I'm like, no, this is how it's going. And like, there's no wiggle room. So I am someone who is not challenged by setting boundaries for my clients. But how about you, Katelyn?
Yeah. So I think that's actually partly why today's test told me that I'm more of an 8 than I used to be, for that very reason. Because in that other program where I'm taking that test, and it told me that I'm an analyst and a nurturer, and nurturers tend to be friends with all of their clients. Guilty.
I mean, I'm friends with all my clients too, but
yeah, like genuinely, I would like want to hang out with them in person, non-business related. So that makes it hard to draw a line where I don't give my phone number out to anybody anymore, mostly. But if I did, that would be a situation where I would have, and this is why I don't. So they would text me after hours and I would feel inclined to reply, friendly behavior. So I stopped doing that. So the 8 has come into play, where I now have to say, I need to tell people when my office hours are. I need to tell people when I will reply. Because if I don't tell them so that they're expecting something very finite, I will come in at like 6:30 in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee, or Saturday morning when I am actually maybe working and no one needs to know that I am working.
Yeah.
So
and
that really helps.
I would think that the Enneagram, so for someone like me who doesn't have a problem with boundaries, Like the Enneagram is just enforcing that. Enforcing is a bad word, but I can't think of what kind of word I'm trying to use right now. But it's letting me know that that is true to my personality. But
Yeah.
for someone who has one of the types where it's not, that can just be an indicator to you that you have to put more things in place in
Hmm.
order to articulate your boundaries, to make sure that you're constantly checking in on them and making sure that they're set and that people are not pushing your boundaries and that your boundaries
Hmm.
are appropriately set. I would think that some people could walk away with knowledge like that from something like an Enneagram test.
Yes, definitely. And I know that since you helped me with my Dubsado process, now that's been like a year ago, so you probably don't remember details of the forms, but I do have a workflow that sends a follow up with the video and like reiterating parts of the contract,
Mhm.
specifically states stuff about communication and support for that very reason. I want to tell them in an automated way so I don't have to say it out of my mouth over and over
Yes,
and over
Katelyn.
again. So that helps for sure, and they respect that.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
No, and I mean, I think that's related to sometimes I get pushback from clients that are like, well, no, but we already have that in this email. And I'm like, yeah, this is the thing that you want to say over and over again. And like
Yeah.
sometimes my clients are like, well, do you have trouble with your clients doing this? And I'm like, no, I don't because I'm a pussy bitch. But this is what we're going to do for you. So that
Yeah.
we make sure that this is
Yeah.
communicated in multiple spaces so that they can't miss it. So that if someone
Yeah.
comes at you and tries to get you to change, the processes that you have in place, that you refer them back to your contract, you refer them
Hmm.
back to the video that Katelyn
Hmm.
made that expressed those boundaries over and over again. No, this is great.
Yeah. Video and written on the same form.
Mhm.
So, like, you literally can't miss it. Don't want to watch the video? It's written right underneath it.
And you could always add a checkbox that says, I have
Yes.
read the above and understand that these
Yeah.
are the policies of launch the damn thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've even
I,
added initial areas on the contract in specific spots because I really want to like drive that point home. Not trying to be a bitch, but I really need you to focus on
I
where
really
I
need you
need
to
to draw the
understand.
line. Yeah,
Hmm.
because it's too easy for me to seep into that role and become a friend, and like then there are no boundaries because it's
Hmm.
just all about helping as much as I possibly can, over delivering, over creating, and I will burn myself out.
Yeah, and guys, I will say Katelyn and I became good friends after we finished working together. I will say that.
Yeah.
Like, so,
Yeah.
we love each other. I do have her actual real phone number and she has mine. But going past that, I did not have that when she was my client.
Yeah.
I just want to say
Yeah.
that. Katelyn, are there any other ways that the Enneagram has helped you in growing your business, making business decisions, anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's been eye-opening to it's weird to see you on paper in that way. Like, I understand that obviously the results that I got were predetermined and they were not
Hmm.
written for Katelyn Dekle, but to see it written out on a page like that where it can say like in your highs, you're this person. When you're reacting in your lows, you're this person. And I was like, okay, well, I need to
Hmm.
tattoo that on my forehead. So, yeah, it helps you become a better person, I think. Just being more self aware generally,
Yeah.
like throughout your
Self
whole day.
awareness is definitely the big thing
Yeah.
because in some ways, when you read them, you're like, oh, well, I've never really thought about the fact that I do that, but I do that. And this affects how I react with my clients in this way. I mean, it is a rabbit hole. So, for those of you who have not taken an Enneagram test, I am going to link the one that both Katelyn and I have taken in the show notes. But I do want to make sure that you don't take it in a rush. Number one, Katelyn said there's a lot of questions. Like,
Yep.
just don't go nilly willy, just clicking buttons, guys, because then what you get is not going to really reflect the choices that you've made on the questions. And then
Hmm.
I would also encourage you not to do it when you know that you have something to do immediately after. So, like,
Hmm.
don't rush through the test and then just glance at your results right before you have to go cook your family dinner or before you have to run out or, service a client. Like, don't do
Yeah.
that. Give yourself,
Yeah.
a little bit of space to review the answers. And I will say, you might be a little offended when you read some of them. So read them all and then put it aside, and maybe in a week come back, because you will be in a place where you can be more
Yeah.
reflective about what the test is telling you, instead of automatically saying, oh, this test is bullshit. Like, that's not me. And then you have to come back a week later and be like, oh my God, that's exactly me. Oh my God.
And don't overanalyze. The first few questions that I started taking, I remember feeling like, well, do I? But what if in this situation? And then that's my
It's
Enneagram
your gut
6.
reaction.
Yeah, go with your gut reaction, your initial reaction to all of those. That's what I did this morning, and it did seem to make a difference.
Okay. Katelyn, I can't let you off my podcast without asking you the two questions that I ask everyone. So first, let's start with, what do you currently outsource in your business?
That is a good question. Right now, it's about to be SEO.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not something that I've ever outsourced before. So I'm excited about it and kind of happy to like give that problem to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. So what is pushing you to outsource the SEO? Like, what is it that you're hoping that you're going to gain from it? Because it's not that you haven't been doing SEO. I mean, you're a website
Yeah.
designer, you do SEO.
Yeah.
So what has pushed you to the point to where you now want to outsource that to someone else?
Actually, it's because of Google Analytics 4.
Okay.
I do not like it. I do not understand it.
I don't either.
I do not get the same numbers as I used to. And it's starkly different from Google Search Console
Mm-hmm.
analytics numbers. It's different from my Squarespace analytics numbers. So I'm just done. I'm like, somebody else fix this problem for me. I do
Yeah.
not have the time to deal with this shit.
After you do it, I would love to hear about your experience, because I created that new website, coliejames.com, specifically for the services. And when I first went into Google Analytics, it automatically gave me a GA4 profile. And
Yeah.
like, I went in there and I was like, okay, but this is not telling me the same things that Universal
No.
Analytics used to tell me. So then I went and created, because did you know that until July, you can still create a universal one? I went back and created a universal one so that I could get the answers that I wanted, but that's not going to help me going forward in July when
No.
Universal Analytics are all gone.
Yeah.
I,
And
I
they're
mean,
officially switching people over too. Like did you get the email from them that was
I
like, if
didn't.
you haven't already, we're going to switch you for you. And I was like, oh, well, maybe if they figure out I screwed it up somehow, they'll redo it. But then I was like, no, I just need to reach out to somebody specifically.
Yeah. Okay. So beyond SEO, do you outsource anything else in your business?
Bookkeeping. I
Yeah.
hate bookkeeping and I do not handle our taxes. So we
Yep.
outsource that to our CPA. And I just recently am almost done trademarking my business name. So I hired an attorney for that.
Good job.
Yep. So that's it for right now. I've got a VA, like, hopefully going to be ready this year.
Okay.
And I'm really excited about that. She's family, but also kind of my best friend. So
Mm-hmm.
should be fine. We have very similar working minds.
Okay. I mean, that's important though. Like,
Yeah.
one of the things that I'm realizing, and it's not really the outsourcing, well, I guess it is related to who I hire, like for my business, but I
Yeah.
really recognized it when I look for coaches, is that it's really important to find a coach that has the same mindset as me. Like, I don't
Yeah.
do well with me giving you something and me not hearing from you for a week. Like, that is not my jam, because anyone
Yeah.
who knows me knows that it kills me to even wait until the next day to answer one of my client questions. I have forced myself.
Yes.
Boundaries, Katelyn, boundaries. But other than that, like, I need someone who has a similar work ethic and a
Yeah.
similar mindset in terms of timelines and those things. So for anyone in the listening audience that's thinking about hiring a VA, you definitely need to translate that into who you're hiring into your business as well. So like,
Mm-hmm.
my virtual assistant, last week there was something that I thought that she had completed and it wasn't actually complete. I sent her an email and she had finished everything within 45 minutes. Like, that's the kind of reaction that I need in
Yes.
my business. And I mean, it doesn't mean that she has to do everything at the drop of the hat, but like some things, like, I need to send you a note and then I just need it to be done. So
Yeah.
no, I'm going to be happy when you have that extra assistance in your business.
So am I.
Well, all right. This is the last question that I ask everyone who's on my podcast. Hey, Katelyn, what's the biggest fuck up in your business? What did you learn
Ooh.
from it? And how did you grow?
Biggest fuck up? You know, you're asking an Enneagram 6, right?
I
We
do
don't
know
have
that.
problems. We fix problems. I am a really low risk, like risk averse person. So I don't really tend to have like giant fuck ups.
Okay.
So I'd have to say the biggest one I could think of is just targeting the wrong people, not being myself. That's a pretty
Yeah.
big one, but I didn't realize that's what I was doing.
Hmm.
So trying to be the professional person just wasn't for me. That's why I left my 9 to 5.
Hmm.
When I finally figured that out and went down my path that felt more unique and comfortable for me, everything else started just kind of fitting into place like
Yeah.
magic. So what is that? Law of attraction? I
I
don't
mean,
know.
and the
Like I was
fact that you
repelling
can be
everybody else.
the fact that you can be a professional and have a business that's called Launch the Damn Thing.
Yep.
Because you know from me telling you every time I curse on my podcast or I write a blog post that has a curse word or on Instagram, my mother texts me and she's like, did you really mean to do that on your business page? Fuck yes, mother. I meant to do that on my business page. If anyone
Yes.
is offended by my cursing, they are probably
They're
not going to
not a
like working
fit.
with me. And
Yes.
she was like, do you curse in front of the children? No, mother. When I am photographing people, I do not curse in front of the children. But do I say lots of curse words while I'm on a strategy call with a Dubsado setup client? Absolutely. I mean, if I feel the need to cuss, I have to cuss. So if you're easily offended by cuss words, I'm not the person for you. And those just need to be everywhere. And so it's good that you figured out what your level of
Yeah.
professionalism is, and that you can exist in a world where you can be you, Katelyn, and still attract. Because I really do think you attract a certain kind of business owner to work with you.
I do. And I think that's why it's so easy for me to be friends with those people
Mhm.
because they are just like me in so many ways.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, if you would like to hear more about Katelyn and just ask her Enneagram questions, you can drop into her Instagram. Katelyn, tell the
Yep.
world where to find you on the internet.
Oh my God. At Launch the Damn Thing on YouTube, on Instagram, that's where I'm most active. Although I will say I'm most active on my blog.
Hmm.
So leave like comment.
Yeah.
Leave me a comment. Join my email list. Hit reply because I actually do reply to everybody.
She does reply. I mean, she also has a really hideous auto reply guy, so you just have to forgive her when you get that. But then after that, she answers you, and it's fucking fantastic. But again, Katelyn, boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, that's your boundary.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
That's
guys.
my
I wish I
boundary.
had it pulled up so I could read to you all the things that are in her auto reply. But it does help her
Yeah,
keep those boundaries.
it does.
Oh, well, my gosh, Katelyn, thank you for coming on the podcast. It was a blast talking to you and recording it at the same time. Everyone else, thanks for listening and see you next time.
Bye.